We now move to the discussion around the mining charter that was recently published by the Department of Mineral Resources, and we're joined on the line by Terence Corrigan, the project manager for the Institute of Race Relations. Terence, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I believe you have some misgivings about the charter. Prince, I want to speak about one specific issue that you have first, which is the free carry, 5% free carry for communities, 5% free carry for employees
Yes.
within this 30% black ownership structure.
Yes.
Can you...
Well, look, I think before we speak about the mining charter, we have to speak about mining as an industry. And as I'm sure that you and your listeners know, we've seen a significant decline in the size of South Africa's mining industry over the last sort of 2-3 decades. If you think, for instance, during the time of the commodities boom, which was an ideal time for mining to grow, it actually shrunk. We are sitting on top of a veritable treasure trove, 2.5 trillion rands worth of minerals. This is really something that I think could help to pull us out of our malaise. Now, the problem is, though, that, and I think that there's a great deal of evidence to support this. The atmosphere, the environment for mining has not been conducive, and particularly for your juniors, for those who are doing the exploration and that sort of thing. Now, the free carry, I understand, and I can, and a big part of me is very sympathetic to the idea. Communities are affected by the presence of big extractive operations. Obviously, we acknowledge that there is a need to improve the conditions of the labor force. But a sort of 10%, a 10% ceding of equity is a very, very steep demand to put on any company, and particularly we feel those that are engaged in this in sort of greenfields operations, bringing new mines on stream. As one of my colleagues said, that for the juniors, it's very difficult to believe that anything but a complete exemption from much of the charter will be of much use. At present, we're just not seeing that sort of greenfields development taking place.
The interesting thing is you talk about the greenfields and junior miners, which of course is one of the more difficult areas of mining, but the free carry also applies to prospecting, doesn't it?
Yes, I think it does. Look, I think that the mining charter is kind of located within a much broader space. It's obviously been a hot issue since the first iteration of the third charter was brought out last year, and there was a great deal of opposition to it. But I think that the sort of overriding problem is really that the entire regulatory system is confusing, changeable. I mean, if you look at probably the best source here is the Fraser Institute in Canada, which ranks mining jurisdictions. And, South Africa, despite having the industry we have and the experience in mining, comes close to the bottom in terms of in terms of the quality of our regulation. It's not so much that we don't have the expertise, or we don't have suitable laws or an understanding of them, but the idea that you never quite know what's coming down the line. It dissuades investment, and I'm not just talking about foreign investment, but domestic investment too.
The one question I have for you, Terence, is that when policies like this are put together, and this is one of the more complex ones, I've looked at, from the issues around procurement to, the free carry to the trickle-down dividends, et cetera, et cetera. It's fairly complex. So it's the sort of thing where I would think if I was a mine owner, I'd be doing a lot of number crunching, working through all these scenarios and seeing which ones work for me and which ones don't. But what I'm after is, does this actually happen in the Department of Mineral Resources? Because any one of the proposals they have in here may not necessarily be bad, but put together maybe they don't work so well. That sort of thing.
No, look, I think you probably hit the nail on the head. There's been, people that I've spoken to have said this, that a lot of the sort of regulation that we have tends to come out of silos. Officials who might be very well versed in one specific area, but as you say, it's an entire system which cumulatively adds massively to the costs. As a whole makes the environment unattractive. Now you say you talk about the number crunching, and I think this is particularly what people looking at greenfields projects will do. And we'll just say that under present circumstances, and under the fear that this might look the same even 5 years down the line, there's a sort of natural perhaps understandable would be a better word. There's an understandable desire to reduce one's risk and look elsewhere. And I think that's unfortunately bad news for South Africa.
Then I don't know if you saw Solidarity statement today, where they suggested that the free carry in fact had been agreed, and from our perspective, I mean, with all the problems we've had in the mining industry, labor problems, community problems, etc., something had to be done. So I can understand where the DMR is coming from with a free carry, but what they're saying is that there was agreement for 3% free carry for each of the communities and labor, and for some reason the Mineral Council went off and came back with a proposal for 1%, and the DMR, it sounds like, were very unhappy, so they went back to 5%.
Yeah, look, I think that's another sort of related problem, and I think what we're talking about there is a fundamental lack of a cooperative relationship between business and government, and for that matter, labor too. I think that you obviously don't want them too cozy together, because then you end up with collusion. I think we're all familiar with that. But the idea, the ability to talk and to trust one another enough to negotiate in good faith and in trust, I just don't see that really existing. And I think that particularly with the previous minister, I mean, it was actually quite remarkable the way the mining houses came out and said that basically they were not going to speak to him anymore. And you just can't have that sort of relationship breakdown in an industry that does require prudent regulation, and where you do want to minimize the harmful byproducts of its operations.
All right, Terence, thank you very much for your time, and have a good night.
And thank you for having me.
All righty. And that's all I have for you tonight on Prime Business. I'll be back again on Monday.
Well, thank you very much, Harold. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in and staying with us on behalf of myself and the crew behind the scenes, Salang It's Profits.